Okay. Call to order. Okay. All right, we're going to start going through the budgets a little more. Let's start with the town side. Okay. And things that we probably start with the easier ones first, and then we'll get to the harder ones. But Kevin, we talked about on the police department that we're not going to be able to fill, a certain number of positions. So we said, on average, let's take out, 4 police officers out of the budget for the proposed budget. So did you come up with a final number on that, Kevin?
I did. An officer fully loaded, new officer would be worth $137,000 a year. So that's $548,000 between them.
Okay. So why don't we do a motion? Go ahead.
Just point of clarification. Sure. Are you taking the positions out or just the money?
The intent was just to take the money out,
okay,
allow them the flexibility, if they have a position, but on average, we're going to say they won't be able to hire that number of people and so forth. So I'd like to have a motion. I'd like to have a motion to take out $587,000 out of the, is it $548,000?
That if you want to think,
you can make
specific numbers, or if we say 548,000, is that close enough? Or
that's close enough.
I just didn't know if you have certain line items, you have to spread that too.
I would probably just recommend doing it as wages and fringe benefits.
Okay.
And then we will push it to health insurance, pension, and the like. So that's all embedded in the 100.
So I'd like to make a motion to reduce police officer wages and fringe benefits by $548,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to talk about the revenue increase on
And you'd have to do another motion to
Okay.
increase the interest income budget.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to, okay, go ahead. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to increase interest income of $500,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
500. Oh, I will be. Thank you. I was before. Hear me now? We had talked about the new police pension amortization schedule. There was a proposal either to do 5-year or 10-year. This change would change that to a 10-year amortization and reduce the pension line by $139,828. I make a motion to reduce the pension line item in the townwide budget by $139,828.
Or a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
This one.
Yes.
We had talked about pension accounts, old pension plan. In previous years, we had put through fund balance the cost to the annuitants. That cost is approximately $172,000. So the motion I'll make would take it would actually add to the revenue side of the budget a fund balance account for $172,000. So I make a motion to add $172,000 to the revenue budget in the fund balance line to pay for pension annuities.
Second.
Discussion? Yeah, just one thing to clarify, Kevin. The 743 that you had in there, just so George understands or whatever. What's the difference between 743 and the difference between the 743 and the 172? So they understand.
when someone retires, they have an option of either accepting a lump sum or the annuity payout, so getting a month, receiving a monthly check. We still have 15 individuals who either are retirees who elected to receive a check or the beneficiary, so they're the widow or widower of somebody who did that. Those are what Gary is talking about, and we pay a monthly amount. Prudential or Empower now processes those payments every month for those individuals as their retirement check. The remaining amount is attributable to those who are active participants whose liability is accruing as they move along. They represent at this point 5 active police officers. It just happened to be police officers. It wasn't dedicated to them. And the actuarially determined value of what they continue, what their payout is worth, assumed because over the last several years, everybody has taken a lump sum payout. They will take the lump sum payout. So the actuaries have calculated that those two together represent the 700,000 and change.
Okay. And in the last few years, each time someone has retired and requested the lump sum, we've appropriated that out of fund balance.
Right.
And thank goodness the plan is a little bit more funded now. Maybe at some point we'll be able to start taking payments out of the out of the pension plan itself.
These next two we will.
So last year, did we fund that portion last year out of fund balance?
No. The previous year, well, yes, in the sense that FY22, you actually funded over $5 million. You had several payouts that were made. Those were fully funded from fund balance. Somebody were to look at the annual financials, you would see that the town's general fund actually experienced a net loss, if you will, because of appropriating that much money from savings. Just the way the accounting works, that's we pulled from savings through the operating accounts and then used to pay. That's why there was an operating loss.
Okay, so all I would like to do is keep this portion open until we go through the whole budget, just in case we decide maybe we'll apply fund balance to this piece also. So, like for now, we'll approve the 172,000. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next one was, we talked about reducing the transfers of the local match for future grants.
Yeah, we had talked about reducing the existing grant match account is 250,000. You know, we had also talked about the fact that we could add more to that account if we need it during the year, but if we do it during the year, obviously we're paying for it from fund balance. If we leave it in the budget here, we're raising taxes to do it. So I think we can act quick enough during the year that if we need more, I think it'd be kind of surprising to use the whole 200,000 all at once unless there was a massive project needing a match. You know, we had talked about maybe reducing that sum. I'll make a motion to reduce the grant match account by $100,000.
Second.
Discussion? I mean, our thought was to reduce it down to 100, or we'd take it out 150, but.
Oh, okay.
So, but
Sorry.
whatever, you know. Any discussion? I mean, whether it's 100, 150, I think we just have something in there.
Mhm.
So the question is to the team, do we want to go with 150 or 100? Reduction.
Any preferences?
I think we can.
Reduction to 150. Okay, I'll
Leave 100.
I'll amend my motion to reduce the grant match account to by $150,000.
Second. We had the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Want to talk about the new bonding, or
Sure.
let's talk about that one.
The budget has in it 930,000 for a June 23 bonding for a police station and 2 HVAC systems at the high school. What we've been kicking around is if we could do a little change in the structure, not the structure of it, but well, I guess the structure in some ways, the payment schedule. to put off the first payment on the principal to the subsequent fiscal year. We'll still end up making 2 interest payments on the June of 23 bond issues. And we do, as of today, it's kind of hard because we're waiting on the state of Connecticut to tell us whether we're going to get grants on the 2 HVAC systems. If we do get those approved, the work has to be done by December 24. And in order to do the projects that we have, they need 2 summers to do it. So the work would have to start this summer and we'd have to be really ready to go. That's why we're looking at doing this as a bonding for June of 23. Obviously, if we got word in the next 2 weeks that we're not on the list and we want to reconsider our timing and do one school rather than both at one time, well, then we'd have a little bit more flexibility here. But we're sort of at the mercy of State Department of Education. I understand the list was supposed to come out March 1st. Our representatives haven't heard anything more, and they've put calls into State Department of Ed, and you know we're just in a holding pattern on that. But for our purposes now, I think we have to go forward. If something happened in the next week or so, or sometime during the process, you know, we could change it. You know, and if it changed in a way where costs were going to be less, it could even change as the process moves on to the council, because the council can reduce our budgets later. We talked a little bit, and Kevin suggested, because we also have a bonding due or planned somewhere out in 24, that we not change the calendar so that we still have them in the years, you know, 1 a year, and just move the principal payment. And that way we would be able to take out $620,000 from the budget on the principal side. Interest would stay the same. You know, the other issue we're facing right now with putting it off entirely is interest rates are likely to be going up more. So our bonding costs will be higher for our interest as we wait too. Not that they're at great levels now.
So Kevin and LaRoche, I got a couple of questions. Okay. What I understand is that the lead time on materials for the HVAC systems is quite lengthy. I'm hearing a year. So my question is, can these projects really be achieved with the lead time? We haven't even, on the Willard project, we just started that, right? Yeah, correct?
We haven't actually physically started the work yet.
We don't have the bids in yet.
The bids have not gone out. We have been told, as of late last week, I asked the question, is it even possible to do this project? I was assured that, yes, they would be able to, but the consultants have told us is that, oh, this may be a larger project for Berlin in the scope of HVAC projects. Even Willard, the size of that school, is not considered a large HVAC project. Should not be an issue to complete in the timing. There's no certainty until you actually get into the project, but that's what we're being told by the outside folks.
I mean, our conversations the other day, Don Lombardo, Public Building Commission, he was pretty adamant that there's no way that with the shortages of HVAC equipment, there's no way we'd get the equipment to meet the state bonding deadlines.
Yeah, he's saying that this is
Pretty
not
adamant
a
about it.
possible goal.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
I think we're going to get stuck in a box on this one.
Because everybody that's going to get a state grant is going to be in the same boat too. So they may amend their requirement later on when they find out. The other thing is, Don also mentioned that it's like the majority of people that might go for these funds did not have shovel-ready projects. They did not have design, you know, they did not have a scope or any of that. We were one of the few that did. So, but I don't know.
The other question is on the grant itself. I mean, that's a real guess, right? The $1 million grants. Because
It's a
The-
guess
the
across.
state- the
spectrum.
state-
You know, the town.
State authorized how much in total grants?
150 million. There were
So,
132 communities.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at it, you try to break it down, million sounds a little high, you know? I'm more concerned that we authorize this bonding and we don't really have a program yet, you know, because
Well, remember, there's a difference.
there's a lead time and then we can't achieve it December 2024.
This is intended to fund so that the required debt service is available. Otherwise, if there's no debt service in place, we can't sign off on doing the bonding. The first step is a bond ordinance. There's a bond ordinance in place for $4.9 million for HVAC at the schools. The second step would be putting in place that there is an appropriation to actually fund debt service in the current fiscal year. And then the third piece would be to move forward on the bonding. No bonding can be issued without at least 2 out of 3 people signing it. And that would be the mayor, the town manager, and the finance director. So at least 2 out of 3 have to sign it. So this is in no way saying that the bonding is done, or the town is responsible for that. But without the appropriation, you would be dipping back into unbalance. And I would just point out one thing, just so kind of keep track of it. If you decide to defer till next year, that's completely reasonable, especially given the timing of when bonding will likely occur. But that will represent an increase from FY24 to FY25 budget built in before you even start FY25. In other words, you would have that, you'd be starting from 0 for principal and embedding the principal in as an automatic increase in the year-over-year budget. Would just be another example. So you've got one-time revenue sources and you would have expenditures that you'd start the year that way, assuming the bonding happened, of course.
So this is also this includes the police department renovations. So,
Yes.
and I'm being told that the project now is focused on the locker room areas and so forth, which is about a $3 million figure, I guess.
What I was told is the number should be somewhere between 3 to 4 million, but there's in a lot of these, we've had bids that we've been surprised on the low end, but a lot more bids where we've been surprised on the high end. There's no one can be certain until the bids are opened, but.
Okay.
Some of that bonding also depends. The original plan included a substantial amount of FY23 surplus to be dedicated to the project so that bonding, the idea was if you're retiring 6.3 million of bonds, you borrow just over 6.2 million, the town continues its multi-year strategy of reducing outstanding debt. To the extent you pull from fund balance, it reduces the pool available to do that, which means you'd be pushing more into bonding. There's nothing inherently wrong, but the downward slope that we looked at during the budget hearing would then bend back up and you'd be increasing the outstanding debt, not to a point that it's harmful to the community, but it would change that trajectory. So
Okay.
something.
But we wouldn't necessarily approve the bonding that you have for the police station as is in this presentation of 4.1 million, right? I mean, you're asking the bond, plus you're using surplus, so you're asking to use surplus and a bonding of 4.1 is 5.1, 5.2. So it's why would we do that? We're talking about $3 to $3.5 million project. I don't
Well,
want to.
since that was presented.
Yeah, I understand that.
the
So,
Scope has changed.
We would be doing that.
oh, so they're just
That's
on
not-
HVAC?
that's
Well, then the 620 is everything, right?
taking the debt service,
Okay.
taking out, that's
Well, it's
assuming we would have bonded whatever his number is there.
Well, we're,
Principal and interest are in this budget, so.
we're
we're
including,
removing the whole thing
the interest though for that, right? For this one.
for that. Yeah, now it would it be prudent to look at the interest side of that calculation? We expect the project to be $1 million less, $1.5 million less, $2 million less, whatever it is.
I mean, you can reduce it. I mean, without knowing what the bonding is, you're adding a critical variable there. I mean, there's a huge variable always not knowing the interest rate. But as far as what you would want, a lot of that also has to do with the timing. Typically, a project would be near completion in terms of design, a reasonable professional cost estimate, and then you would come in and say, asking for this cost. The intent to start this project 2 or 3 or 4 months after the start of the fiscal year puts you in the precarious position of saying, I'm in the middle of the year starting a substantial project without necessarily having funding in place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with bond authorizations too, we can approve it for more than what we anticipate it to be. Because how much do we actually end up taking? So, I mean, the fallback is to give the authorization. You know, we've already done step 1 with the authorization, then do the appropriation. It doesn't mean we have to fund the entire appropriation or ever will. Depends where the project comes in. You know, if we said we were bonding 4 million of that project, we all hope that it's up to 1.5 or 2. That's fine.
Traditional.
But for your point, yes, there's interest expense still stuck in the budget for probably whatever the number is.
Sure.
That was originally anticipated for bonding.
Traditionally, you'd want to do the bonding a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Bonding is not just authorization to borrow, but it's also an appropriation. That way, if you're in the middle or late stages of a project and something unexpected happens, you have an opportunity. We don't bond for contingency until the project's completed and unless it's necessary. You could probably recall, especially those of you who've been on the Board of Finance for a little while, a couple of years where I've come back to you asking you surplus money. The jail cells was one. There's a couple of projects where there were items that were needed and we use surplus rather than bonding. We don't like to bond for contingency, and certainly we don't bond for it until it's known. Then you'd be borrowing money that you may or may not need. But it's typical to borrow higher and then deauthorize, which we typically will do annually if it's available and the projects are completed. Essentially is the equivalent of cutting up your credit card system.
On projects like this, do you charge the bond fees and other fees for the project, or do you pay them outright?
If we have money in the general fund legal line, take it out of the general fund rather than amortizing and paying interest on those costs. If it's not available, then we would put it into the project.
Any other comments?
This is, so, but these 3 projects would ultimately be tying up about 4.1 million in surplus.
And that again was a strategy to keep the borrowing, the new borrowing below what's being retired. It doesn't have to be that way, but it would mean that the downward trend that the town has been on would reverse. But, you know, therefore, I can tell you from a discussion, I know that I've been asked the question, what would that do? What would the impact of the bond rating be? I think there's a legitimate story there when you talk about renovating a 50-year-old police station or air quality for children in elementary school. Those are understandable. If it was something that the town could or could not do and it was sort of subjective, then those become a little bit more of a story about how are you managing the finances. But in this instance, I think Standard & Poor's would look at this, say those are legitimate long-term investments being made better of the community and the staff who supports it.
Well, you know, with respect to the police department, I see that $1 million is not going towards that because of the value.
I think we're better off bonding $3 million for the PD and dropping these 2 other projects altogether. I mean, not dropping them to the point of not doing them, but putting them out like we had originally talked about. Willard, then a year later, Hubbard, and then a year later, Griswold, which has been the line all the way along. So now all of a sudden we have 3 big projects right in a row here. $4.1 million in surplus being spent. A revaluation that's raising everybody's taxes at least 4%. And
So, yeah, what happens if we get the grant at that point? The decision is made.
we won't be able to finish the projects according to the building commission.
We don't know that, right?
We don't know that, but we do know that we have a budget shortfall this year. And we're not raising taxes 3 mils. I know that. So,
Well, what's your feeling, Parosh, on schedule?
It's unfortunate because we were supposed to know this March 1st and it's March 14th and there's nothing from the state so far. So, I mean,
But even without the grant, what's your feeling on lead times and so forth?
I have no feelings on that.
Is there somebody that could
No.
speak for?
I mean, Kevin just spoke to it. I mean, right now, that's the contractors and the professionals say that the small project like this will be able to get it done. I don't know
Okay.
until we go out to bid. The second one is, I think Mr. Grady mentioned this, that it might not be feasible to get everything done in 2 summers. And if all other schools or towns are in the same predicament, it might change the criteria to extend it by another year. They want these projects completed. The idea is not to award grants and say, oh, you can't do it, so we're going to take it back.
Any other comments? It's just, from my perspective, here where you're coming from on the bonding, Kevin, but, there's unknowns here and, we're trying to, not overtax the, taxpayers on something that may not happen. So we're kind of in a dilemma here, with respect to the unknown.
Well, we could hedge our bets and go with the plan to push the debt principal off for the subsequent year.
Yep.
All right, so people won't be paying for it. And if it ends up, we don't need it, we didn't need it, we didn't tax them for it. But the question then becomes, what do we do with the interest expense? Leave that in and take the 620 out.
So,
You do have, you do have the option of leaving it in as you're sending the budget to the annual budget hearing, not to the voters, which buys until April 28th. After the hearing, you intend to vote on the budget to send to the council. Council then has 5 days, so
March 20th.
I'm sorry, March, yes, I'm sorry, March 28th. So I'm hoping it's decided before then, but even if it's not, there's 5 additional days and the council has the authority under the charter to cut further. So if we were to find that we didn't get the grant, none of it, it's not ideal, but it's, first of all, the council doesn't have the ability to add anything back in if we get it. So leaving it in does open the door. I'm not saying kick the can down the road to the council, but you don't know, nobody knows, but you do have a couple more stops along the way before it goes to the voters, where if you leave it in, council can reduce. If you take it out, they can't add it back in and you could be handcuffing the town.
but we're using $4.1 million of surplus to do that. So we're hamstringing ourselves on other capital projects and we're not allowing us any leeway to make adjustments on the mill rate with it.
Well, the 4.1 is in the plan. That there's nothing used there. That's a projected surplus at the end of the year, and anything that money would be used for, whatever or nothing, would be the decision first of the council, then of the Board of Finance. That 4.1 million is in a plan, but it is not used for anything. Council would first have to agree whatever the decision is, and then it would come to you. Anything at year end for surplus dollars. That's simply that's a plan. I think it's a thoughtful plan, but it's not the only plan. And certainly if you decided that's not what we want to use that money for, Board of Finance could simply say, no, we don't think that's the best use. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons you guys exist, is to provide financial oversight and counsel. So I don't want you to think that that's budgeted or anything like that. That is projected surplus that Council and Board of Finance collectively will have to use.
Yeah, if you wanted to have control over those funds, you could put them into the budget with an offset and fund balance. If you wanted to say, I don't want to take a chance of what the council will do, I want this to happen, you could put the $1 million in the capital section of the budget and offset it with fund balance.
Yeah.
But that's not how we normally, do it.
when do we have to turn over the budget usually?
You have up to 2 days after the annual budget hearing The meeting is scheduled to take place the night of the budget hearing. We've been doing that the last few years. You don't have to do it that night. By charter, you have 2 days. And then the council has 5 days after you turn it.
I mean, because I'm okay with approving, the 620,000 reduction, Tim. And if we get more information, I really would like to speak to somebody from public buildings too, with respect to this, at the HVAC projects to really, I appreciate what you're saying, but I like to understand the lead time and so forth. And are they really going to happen? But for this purpose, we approved the 620,000 reduction and then get more information, give us some time to say, we can make an adjustment accordingly, right?
It looks like you already spoke in Public
Well,
Building Commission.
I think you ought to speak to him.
Well, but we need,
Spoke to one member,
Yeah.
not as a commission.
Well, but why don't we authorize you to go ahead and get whatever qualms you have
Yeah.
Yep.
relieved, I mean. So we can,
So your motion is on the table for 620.
all right, you want me to remove that or do you want to vote on it?
We would need a second.
I think we should wait a little bit on this.
Fails without a second.
Well, I did talk to Don Lombardo and he had virtually no confidence that these things could get done. He said he's got a building now he's trying to get chillers for and they're over a year out.
Yeah, but what do you have to lose though by putting 620 back right now?
So
You can always change it. I mean, if that's honestly, I would do a second right now. Like, yeah, what do we have to lose? We still have to go
Yeah,
back.
I mean, we're not gonna finalize anything. for,
Exactly.
A while yet anyway.
So you have a motion and a second. Vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
that'd be a nay.
5-1. We get that. We get that.
Okay, ready? Okay, VNA. We've had much discussion. Arosha, you were asked to come up with some numbers to cut or to revise the budget down to come up with a $300,000 reduction in the deficit. You want to share with us how that looks, line items?
Well, I don't have anything. Only way I can do it is to take people off.
Yeah.
The list.
Well, yeah, I mean, we asked you to cut 200 or 300,000 out of their budget.
You're asking me to eliminate positions, right?
Yeah.
There's no. other
If that's,
way.
if that's what they decide is the only way to get to a $300,000 deficit.
There's nothing else that can
Okay.
get to 300,000.
Okay,
What's the projected losses this year? The VNA,
750,
how much?
750.
750?
866.
It's 866.
for the budget that we're on.
The projection. Last year also, we closed the year.
So why are we already have projections that are different than the budget that you're proposing?
But the budget was at the beginning of the year. You're talking about the next year's budget?
Yes. Yeah, I'm asking for your projection of next year.
Yeah,
I think that's what you were
Yeah,
asking. The
next year.
budget calls for a loss of 866,000. So,
the only way you can get that to what we are predicting this year is to eliminate around $180,000.
What's their budget right now? What's the VNA's budget right now? The real number, the projected number for next year?
Around 750.
750?
Yeah.
Is their budget?
no,
No.
their expenditure budget is of 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Expenditure budget for fiscal 23 is 1,576,000, yeah. 23.
Okay.
So in order to get down to like a 675, we'll have to reduce the expenditures to like 1,387,000.
Well, you're gonna reduce revenues, but revenues by reducing expenses, but by reducing expenses, as the director said, that's gonna reduce revenues too. So we have two pieces on this budget that we have to deal with. If we're gonna cut the deficit by 300, you're gonna be reducing revenues and you're gonna be reducing expenses.
So this is where this number that they put in the budget book here comes into play. And that's why I'm asking if it's accurate. 727 visits in the course of a year.
2 a day.
That's 3 a day. For 6 full-time people.
No, I have the numbers. I had raised my hand and tried to talk in the chat. I didn't want to interrupt you
Well,
prior.
this is the number that's in the budget book.
All right.
The chair,
What is the
we
number?
have to look at the numbers.
Okay,
The
so that must be a typo because for fiscal year 21 to 22, we performed 7,466 visits. And the this fiscal year from June or July 1st of 22 to today is 5,321.
That's a big difference.
Big difference,
Yes, sir, it is.
probably 7,000.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're
So how
welcome.
how many patients do we have right now, Leah? How many patients do we have right now?
Let me jump back onto the computer. Hold on. Current active census today is 46, but that fluctuates on a day-to-day basis and also is not reflective of total patients cared for in the month. But
Okay.
just as an FYI.
So you're saying that on March 14th, you have 46, but you might have patients that have left to care in the last couple of weeks, basically.
Yes,
To your
the
point,
census number changes on a daily basis.
to your point, maybe I wasn't clear at the last minute that because we have to present the budget. Mr. Delaney unfortunately has to present the budget for us by line item. So we don't presuppose to micromanage the department. So it's not up to, we're not in the know as to what lines would create what other effects. So to me, it's on the department to come back with that budget.
So you realize if you eliminate positions, that's gonna hit the top line again. You're gonna chasing your tail. The downward spiral, and you're gonna be in a situation you could lose your license
How's that?
from the state
How's that?
because you might not be able to provide the services once you take a patient in.
Well, maybe they will have to take in less patients.
Less patients, less revenues.
Yes,
But
smaller deficit.
I mean, if you have a deficit, you don't have revenue.
say that again?
If you have a big deficit like that, you don't really have a revenue.
You do have revenue, but it won't cover all of the expenses. That's what you're saying.
So my thing is that I think we're spending $1, $3 to get 5, like not even. The math is we're spending 3 to get 1.
The reality is at some point we have to, if we can't do our service in a way that is somewhat cost effective, we have to reduce how many services we're doing. Okay, to get to a manageable deficit. 866,000 is 56,000 is not a manageable deficit each year. If someone were to say we're going to do nursing services like the town of Westbrook does, and they only take care of a small group of people and they're willing to do a couple $100,000 a year, well, then we could say fine. The issue that I think I see as the biggest issue is, you know, there used to be many VNAs in the state. Now we're down to 2. Why is that? Because the municipalities cannot run these services in a way that makes sense. Hartford Healthcare, any number of other service agencies, they're out there, they do it. I hear quality of service, and I don't doubt that our service is great, but to me, it's not a service. If it weren't for the charter, that service probably would not be provided by the town of Berlin. And it is in there and it's costing us a heck of a lot of money. I don't think most people understand how much it's costing. And the problem here, you know, it comes down to, you know, if Park and Rec wants more, comes in with a budget that adds and adds and adds every year, and we say, oh no, we got to put the brakes on. Well, we put the brakes on. There's never been any brakes being put on. We've been through 4 directors now, every one of them promising changes. We've had one consultant. The consultant has given us, you know, changes. You know, we had a meeting with Aaliyah, you know, talking about the consultant stuff. I understand she's new within a year to the position, but when I got this budget, I was a little bit surprised because I really didn't see anything structurally changing in terms of how the department was run. Right? She had an opportunity to come in with a revenue budget and an expenditure budget. And, you know, I understand maybe she's wearing 2 hats or more, but, you know, at some point, the whole line of deficits goes back well over 20 years here. And, you know, when we had plenty of money in those times, it really didn't raise to the top of the heap in terms of someone looking at it. But, you know, times are different. Nobody is going to go without services if the VNA does not provide the service. There are other companies out there that will do the service. Their insurances will cover other services. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there in terms of what's going to happen if we don't provide the service.
So I could give you any number you want. That's not the problem. But I do want to alert you to the risk that you might be taking. One is losing certification as a result that we might not be able to provide the services as noted in the charter and will result in a violation.
Well, the charter does not specify level of service or how much service.
I got it. But if the state shuts us down because of we don't meet the certification, then you can't provide.
Well, but it seems to me maybe there should be some thought put into the plan of how we're doing cuts in conjunction with that and possibly with our town attorney.
Yes. So if you want the $300, I don't want to just keep positions without really understanding what.
I totally agree. I thought I should have been a little more clear probably at the last meeting.
You should have, yes.
What would the impact be if we eliminated the out-of-town services? It says 24% of their patients are out of town. What would it mean?
So,
And what if, I mean, right size this to meet the needs of the town? I don't understand why we're providing, I really have a lot of agita about providing services outside the town when nobody can tell me what it costs to do it.
Subsidizing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if we are really subsidizing them, to me, that's just not okay.
the way I understand it, it's not that if you don't provide those services, you'll have even less revenue on the town.
Understood that.
It's like filling the empty chair in the classroom, same type of concept. You have full-time staff, the nurses and the aides right here. So if you don't take a patient in Southington or Nivington, you're still paying them anyway.
Well, what I'm saying is what is the right size staff to meet the needs of Berlin?
The question should be, is
You're presuming we're
yeah.
going to keep all staff and have them sitting on the bench.
like,
we
is
don't-
the
if we-
cost higher if that person goes off to Southington to take care of the patient? This is the spending $3 to get $1
That's a
back.
false fallacy. What do you mean it cost high? You already.
No, I'm
paid the
asking
person.
you, like, what is it worth it taking a VNA nurse from Berlin, driving to Southington? Because there is no guarantee that the cost is going to get reciprocated. There is no guarantee. We might be spending 3 to make 1. Could be. Okay. And honestly, looking at the math, it's what's happening,
Yeah, because the reimbursement rates are different depending on the insurance coverage.
especially now up to January with Medicare. I get it.
3 years ago, we were told that in order to expand their revenue, they needed to go out of town. We haven't seen that yet, right? There's plenty of out of town people being served, but we haven't seen that revenue yet. So I'll take that with a grain of salt, you know, I mean, more, you know, taking everyone who comes in the door when she told us the other day, we could have a service that costs us $60 and we get reimbursed $18. Well, that's, you know, I understand you have to take everything that comes, you know, or provide every service that is there, but you know, maybe our volume is way too high.
You do also understand that as a VNA nurse, as a VNA, they can't ask what kind of
Oh,
insurance.
I understand that.
Turn it down based on
No.
reimbursement rate, right?
No,
Agreed.
Can sort of move in that direction, but.
you can't turn it down because of that, but you could turn it down because you don't have enough staff.
Yeah. So if you want the 300,000, I can give you positions, but I don't think that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
You can plug in a 300,000 number and have at it. I'll come up with the positions.
No, I want to see the positions first.
Now,
No, not now.
Yeah.
No, we'll
I think
be meeting
I think
again.
the challenge we have, Arosh, is, we look, you can't identify a variable cost, you know, to a service, and then what's the fixed cost? We're not really understanding it all, you know what I mean? And it's complex too, that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? We're, you know, normally we're saying, what is a variable cost that goes with that service, right? And then separate the fixed cost so we could understand it, but we just don't understand that enough, you know, because it's kind of convoluted a little, it's complex, you know, it really is. But, you know, look at it and we'll come back tomorrow if you want. We can discuss tomorrow night. All right. Next area is capital.
Yeah, capital. You know, one of our favorite topics over the years. What I would suggest this year, and we've had some discussions, I've talked with some of you. My suggestion would be to fund all of the tier 1 items in capital, which I believe total $1,070,000. So I can make a motion, then we can talk about it.
Sure.
If that's okay. Make a motion to reduce the capital line by $1,616,000, which would fund only the top tier items.
For a second,
Second.
further discussion?
The top tier items, you're talking about the very
First subsection. Yeah.
first subsection.
This stuff is right here.
Just this.
Tim, they're the,
Yes.
you want to look behind you?
Yes, I got one here.
EHA. The logos, yeah.
yeah.
It just took me a second to find it. This one had the blocks in it for the Borough High School. Am I in the right one?
I don't have it in front of me.
Right here. Yep. I would prefer to have this go through building commission. I mean, that
Which one? The 200,000?
200,000. I just,
Did they do that kind of stuff?
yeah, Don said that they would be able to take a look at something like that. I would just feel more comfortable having them make the determination as to how this has got to be corrected, because if something's leaking other than groundwater, you know, if there's a problem with the building itself, then we should be addressing that before we're looking at spending $200,000 on slabs. That's
Typically, those decisions are made by the council to either ask staff or refer to Public Building Commission. I don't think anybody's opposed to Public Building Commission looking at this. The one caution I would have is there needs to be a decision to move quickly. I had a conversation with the facilities director within the last week on this, just to confirm what we're looking at. And we are definitely getting moisture into the classrooms. We need to remedy the situation before it becomes I hate to say it, but
Black
it's
mold.
been around for a while, a McGee too. We end up with old and other issues that are significant. So as long as doing something like that is consistent with what the council wants and can be moved quickly, it's not a staffing thing. It's really about the kids in the school and the teachers and others that we remedy that situation.
Well, my main concern is we fix it the first shot. And, you know, to have the experts look at it would just make me feel a lot more comfortable about spending $200,000.
I totally agree with the expertise. They just have a lot on their plate between the different projects and the reviews and other things. So as long as it can move quickly,
I mean, this is the #1 priority on the list. You know, I mean, I hear you, Tim, but it
Yeah.
is the #1 priority on the list. And we're just going based on the fact that these are the top priority ones for the town, and I'm okay with, you know, going forward. I understand your concern. You know, if they do an evaluation and it doesn't work out, then you know, we can, but at this time, why not move forward, you know, the top priority items that the town is asking for now.
and the intent of this is not for
Yeah.
staff to do it. I mean, this would be people who do this for a living, but and anything where anywhere this money would be spent, this volume would have to go through the council and be vetted out and approved. So there would have to be a bidding process and all of that to go. I mean, this is a substantial amount of money from our perspective. Like I said, we just want to make sure we can move quickly to address whatever moisture designers exist in any school.
Yeah, the only other one I have questions about is I asked about it on the last meeting, the ballast blocks. Same thing here. I talked to the building commission. And first question was, how can these things be damaged? They're 7 years old. This is not a normal life cycle for these blocks. They shouldn't be damaged. Are they warrantyable? Has anybody contacted the installer or the company that makes the blocks? This is $70,000 in less than 7 years. I mean, it doesn't seem like a very efficient system of solar panels if every 7 years we have to put $70,000 into cement blocks. Kind of defeats the purpose of having solar power. So there's one I would like to refer to somebody else too.
That one I'd have to refer to the director. I don't know the details. Familiar with what it is, but I can't tell you why there are these circumstances right now. That one.
The first time I read it, I didn't even know what they were, but after hours and hours of research, I got a pretty good idea now, and they use them because they're known for their durability. So
We'll check what the life cycle is.
or if there's something causing them to break.
So, let's hold off on this until tomorrow evening. Is that what we're saying? Get a little more information.
Yeah, you need information on that. And what about the other one that you had a question? Other item, right?
Well, you have a motion that was made and seconded for the second, third, and fourth group. So I don't know if you want to vote on that motion and then come back to the first group if there's anything else you want to add. You already made a motion and Tim seconded it.
On funding the first tier.
Funding on removing this tiers 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And Tim had a question first tier, but at least taking the motion first.
Okay.
Jerry had moved to remove tiers 2, 3, and 4. Tim had seconded it. So
All in favor?
Aye.
So
That's 2, 3, and 4 being removed.
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kevin, want to go over Kevin's list?
Oh, yeah.
Can I just circle back for, is there any thoughts or opportunities with year end or whatever to do any of these other projects or?
Yeah, towards.
You know, I guess I'm sort of bothered by the playground stuff. I know, Tim, you went and looked at it. I'd like to get some expert opinions out there to look at them and see. But it also, the condition of them doesn't address the handicap accessibility and all that kind of stuff.
You like an expert now?
Okay, sure.
So I've kind of listened to the last couple of meetings regarding the playgrounds on the
Can
slides.
you give us your name?
Steve Wood.
Davis.
Superintendent of Parks and Grounds. Nice to meet you all.
I don't think we've ever.
Nice, Dave.
How's it going? I can answer a lot of the questions. I want to start with the Willard School Playground. Both of the slides at Willard, at least in the last 7 years, due to the fact that just because of their age and UV degradation, they started to fail and became unsafe. So we removed those and replaced those with 2 brand new slides. The current play structure that is there, as far as I can find back in the records, it comes back to 1998. Manufacturer of the playgrounds does not provide parts. So if something goes wrong or if something was to break, we have to completely remove whatever items are there. And that playscape used to probably be almost twice the size it is now. And as things break, we've removed it. That is the only playground that has not been replaced at any of the schools. And this would speak to the ADA requirements. Whenever a playground is installed nowadays in 2023, there has to be a certain percentage of ADA component pieces of playground equipment on each one. So if it's 10%, there's got to be 10 things that can be used by children, wheelchairs or with limited mobility. The safety surfacing that is used at all the playgrounds is considered to be ADA compliant. It doesn't seem like it's the easiest to roll around the wheelchair or a walker, but it is designed for that. In the standards, it is allowed. The next one I'd like to speak about is Little People's Playground. Little People's Playground goes back to 1998. These ladies brought some great pictures of the condition of the playground. It's got 4 slides, very little, nothing new. If you go to other towns, their playgrounds are new. They've been installed in the last 5 or 6 years. There's all different components. Back in the 1980s, everybody rolled out these traditional playgrounds where you had canopies and you had platforms and people walked upstairs and they kind of went down the slides. Nowadays, if you go to Griswold Sport onto the parking lot side, the new parking lot side, that's 5 to 12. That's aimed towards kids to go out there, have like kind of that ultimate Ninja Warrior effect to it, climb on things, jump on things, and that's really to get the kids active and moving. If you go to the backside of the playground, and Raul, your comments are great, and I understand them, but that's what the school wanted. The school wanted a playground for when the kids could go out that are 2 to 5 years old, just going into kindergarten younger than they should have. They have an area to play. Ladies talked about it tonight, is they wish they had that at our playgrounds. And we don't really have a section at Community Playground or Little People's Playground that speaks to the 2 to 5 age gap. So yes, all of our playgrounds are past their prime. The average life expectancy is 15 to 20 years. All of them are 25 years old. That's how old they are. They were all put in when all the old equipment was condemned, when we got it from McDonald's and Burger King. That was installed in the 1980s. I think Burger King Playground was on the Ridge. And you guys have done a great job, and so has the town council, with supporting it and funding the repairs that we can get done throughout the whole entire town on all of our playgrounds. I have a list of everything that's been replaced over the last 5 years on our playgrounds. But now the problem is when you try to order something with lean manufacturing, either they don't make the part doesn't fit. We're shrinking our playgrounds. The town is growing, and it takes 36 weeks to get something. We ordered a swing for Percival Playground. That swing's been there since I was a kid in 1980 using Percival Pool. 36 weeks, and we still don't have it. We ordered a climber for Community Playground. 36 weeks, we still don't have it. So if we keep trying to replace the things that are broken, or we keep kicking these playgrounds year down the road, we're not going to have anything for these kids to use. And that's not fair. You also look at Friendship Place. Friendship Place was installed in 2002 and dedicated in 2003. That playground safety servicing was done 7 or 8 years ago for $70,000. It's now getting to the end of its lifespan. Okay, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, we're going to replace it. Well, it's going to cost us $100,000 to replace it. So we're going to replace $100,000 worth of rubber on a 23-year-old playground. So by the time that playground is up, it's 33 years. That playground sits in a swamp. Go there, hop on one of those pods. And as the pod swings, that's because the chains have rusted from the amount of water that's in the ground. So now we have the playground that's 33 years old. How do we keep, all we're doing is taking these playgrounds, and kicking them down the road, and eventually we're going to end up with $1.5 million, $2 million worth of playground renovations, where I think we could have chipped away. So I guess in my personal opinion, I think we should start with Little People's Playground. And I really think that Willard Playground needs to be done, just because we can't get any parts. And Willard Playground is totally different than Friendship Place. But Friendship Place with site and security is not available to any mom or any kid during school hours because of site security and what, I guess, how scared the schools are of somebody walking onto the property.
So the playground behind Griswold, I may be wrong, but was the PTO that actually paid for that, right?
Yep, the PTO paid, total cost of the project was $152,000, 6 years ago. And that, the PTO donated $28,000.
Okay.
The cost of playgrounds as of right now, as of yesterday, has gone up 40% in 3 years.
Do you have any way of knowing on your playgrounds which ones are used the most?
The most heavily used playground that we currently have right now is Little People's Playground.
This one right down the street here?
Right here.
Any time of day or night you drive by there, especially on warm days, you'll probably find 10 or 15 parents there. If you get out of your vehicle and you start walking around and looking at things, there are plenty of people who walk up to you and tell you what they don't like about it. The Yogi Bear, the snail,
I took my grandson there once. I won't take him back.
right. Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing, you know, but
I'm surprised that that one's used that much because I don't see people there.
Same.
Well, I think what I'm, you know, that playground and a number of others around town, I think it goes back to the old, you know, things of my days when there were a lot of neighborhood playgrounds versus school playgrounds. All right, we didn't, you know, but as dollars get shorter and shorter and fewer, I guess my question is, are we better off investing more in those that are at schools because we know there's good parking there, you know, and going in that direction rather than the neighborhood playground.
right. So the problem becomes with the school playgrounds is unfortunately they are closed during school hours. That's 185 days of the year the kids are going to school. Nobody's allowed to use them.
Oh. I've
Till
been,
after hours.
I've been there.
You know,
I didn't realize you weren't supposed to.
and they're in, get a check. I'll take a tour with anybody at any time who wants to go to look at any playground and go over any idea that you guys have after hours, during hours, call me on my cell, whatever it is. But if you look at the totally difference of the playgrounds, if you look at Griswold School's playground, you look at Hubbard School's playground, they're two totally different playgrounds. And it's just a totally different concept. One is state of the art and one that's very old. And just the way both principals wanted to design them two different ways. Lori Jerpin came up with a phenomenal design, but you know, you also look at other towns and other towns have splash pads. Somebody asked the other week, why isn't community on there? We'd like to do a partnership next year and do community playground and a splash pad in conjunction. So, you know, yes, it's going to be a $500,000 in the grounds request for capital, but it's bringing a new service to the town. It's bringing something new. I don't just put these things on the capital improvement because that's what I want to do is see you guys have to sit up here and cut stuff, but it's what the residents come to us. And when the residents come to us with something or we get a complaint, I think it's my job as a superintendent to add that to my capital.
So the 200K for Little People's.
Yep.
What is it? Is it just like, is it entire property? Is it renovations? Like, what is it?
Exactly. It'll cover. So there's been some concerns about the fencing, saying the fencing is kind of beat up and outdated. We can do that inside of the current active budget of the Parks and Grounds if that's what we decide, but it would update everything that's in there, except for possibly an adaptive swing that we put in a couple of years ago, but it would give a whole new thing. Give us an area for 2 to 5, give us an area 5 to 12. The ladies brought something up about benches and different types of things that we can incorporate those. You know, I've got $30,000 in my budget this year for playgrounds. That's not even enough to even start to replace anything. I think right now the climber is like $23,000 that we're going to install in community playground. The pricing on playgrounds is outrageous of what it costs. It'd be a complete facelift of everything. Same thing, we're currently in design services and coming up with a conceptual design for Willard Playground, just because we know if the money was ever available and they want to get this done in the summer of 2024, we needed to start planning this back in January. We started just after Martin Luther King Day. And by the time it gets into the assembly line and it's done, our goal would be the summer of 2024. And the more we push that off, we'll never hit that deadline.
Okay. Of little people or little, like the playground itself? Not of little people, but playground.
Oh, good. All right, well, thank you, and we appreciate your input.
No problem.
Um,
If you guys ever need anything, please email.
I think
me.
let's do a couple things. One is, let's look into the couple items we have questions on. And then maybe we'll look at the playgrounds and say, maybe we'll use some surplus, possibly, so let's,
Yep.
we're not gonna make a decision tonight, doesn't sound like, but, let's think about that and, with respect to maybe using some surplus. I don't think we're gonna need the surplus on the PD.
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, Sal. Sorry. Which one is the worst? Is it Little People's, you said? Okay. Sorry, Sal.
All right, and, because I think, we'll have some surplus that we're not gonna use towards the police station.
And we would want to try not to get into the same boat when you guys first took over, where we had out-of-date police cars, out-of-date fire engines, out-of-date this, that, and the other thing, trucks, whatever. It's like, and you made a conscious effort while you guys were here to start investing periodically and staying abreast. Well, this kind of falls in that category a little bit, I think.
Keep in mind, you did just take out the police cars.
Mhm.
You just took the cars out.
Well, I mean, in the past few years.
I'm not admitting to that.
Okay, so,
I'm just gonna yell at me.
the other item, Evan, we asked you to look at that other category with respect to $300,000, so maybe you could take us through.
Sure. I gave you guys a list. I want to start publicly by stating these are not recommendations in any way, shape, or form from anybody in town. We to present a 1.9% increase in the town operating budget. Every department head, everyone scrutinized their budget closely. Going back through again, really required looking at anything where there was an increase or we could identify a potential delay in needing the money. All of these come with value to the town, but to come up with 300,000, something had to come out. Going down this list, the first item, there's $30,000 in the budget for Veterans Commission irrigation. This is for irrigation at Veterans Park out at Legion Square to deal with what's there. There's a bit of a hold right now as we determine whether the irrigation that is proposed can be put underneath the cap that was put there. Folks who've been around for a while realized that there was contamination there and there was a cap put on in that area. Second area is removing collectively $10,000 from the cemetery committee, zeroes out the fencing account, leaves $2,500 from maintenance and repair and $2,500 from contractual services. This leaves all funding in contractual services, and it was left there because you can do fencing and maintenance repairs with contractual services. Can't go the other way, so that's why the funding was removed the way that it was. $30,000 in professional services. This line is used each time that the council directs the town manager to look into fill in the blank. We're going to hire someone for something. For example, recently, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, the council would like to start looking at potential uses of Crystal Creek in that broad area and hiring someone. This account would be used. There's $80,000 of funding in that account. The date this year, it is fully encumbered. Don't necessarily think it will be fully spent, but it is fully encumbered by projects based on what we expected. It was used for a number of things across the spectrum. This would drop that account to $50,000, which would likely force the town to defer a couple of those consulting engagements mid-year. Public Works flood control and Public Works stormwater analysis, $10,000 each. These are items where Public Works investigates areas that you might be notice around town, where there might be regular flooding or stormwater issues and backup, try to analyze and prepare a plan to avoid those issues. Snow and ice materials. There was a request to increase that $25,000. As with everything, we're dealing with inflation. So this was given, what we looked at, there was an increase, keep it at current year, and run the risk of having,
Do we have inventory carryover?
we will if there's salt in the shed, certainly
Yeah.
if it's over.
Yeah, I mean, because we've had such a mild winter this year. I'm just wondering if we can piggyback off of that
And
to
that's
some degree.
part of the reason of saying we'll take the risk.
Yeah.
Next one is schools electricity and then public buildings electricity. We've been seeing some favorability. So bringing those two down, 40,000 of the school electricity and 25,000 of the buildings electricity. That would imply consistent usage and no major price increases. We've locked in the price for about half of the cost. The other costs fluctuate, so if that goes up, we do run some risk there. $10,000 for public building telephone. That line pays for the town's landline and cell phone services, with the exception of the PD, who pays for it, pays out of their budget. School security guards, this doesn't eliminate that, but it takes away the increase from there. Again, we went through and looked at everything that had an increase. To be clear, security guards are paid through the Board of Ed. They're on the Board of Ed payroll. This is a transfer to the Board of Ed. Now get into some of the other items we've.
So basically, we'd be shifting costs there.
I mean, keep in mind,
So it's not really a savings because they're going to have to increase their budget by 11.5.
well, their budget's going to be what you give them.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, by taking this 300,000 out and the 300,000 from the VNA, the town government operating budget will be at a zero increase. It was up 644,000. It would be up $44,000 year over year. So we're at a point to go to zero. We're at a point of cutting into the bone. We're literally going backwards during historic high inflation. Things that there's nothing on this list that was identified. Next, we get into a series of library items. The Blanche Delaney room, which is the large meeting room at the library, has old tables, chairs. The library requested to replace those. It's a heavily used room for any number of meetings, programs. There's art exhibits that are in there for students. Removing that, and it would require deferring that. $30,000 from books. This takes away the increase plus a little bit more. Again, it's just trying to look at items where you can actually make a reduction, not just assume you're going to make a savings and play an Excel exercise, but simply reduce. Next is audio video materials, taking out the proposed increase there of $5,000, data services of $10,000 and databases of $5,000. You heard tonight from one of the patrons for one of the smaller libraries around town. They both requested a $500 increase year over year. Again, taking out increases, we just went down and took all the increases out. The Planning and Zoning Commission requested tablets, so we would defer those another year and not purchase those. Contractual services in the assessor's office.
Is this for new tablets or first-time tablets?
First-time tablets, they don't have. And of course, they, as you, I'm sure anybody who's been on planning and zoning, it's maps, it's a lot of looking at things. So the request was to make it easier during meetings and between meetings when items are emailed to them to be able to look at stuff.
I don't know about the practicality of looking at a huge diagram on a tablet. I don't know. We can't even make sense out of them as they are.
Assessor contractual services. This is in payment of personal property tax audits that are required by statute. So we will just take the risk of either not collecting or not identifying items as much. $5,000 from townwide televised meetings. This gets into some of the support for Zoom and other things that we might do during the year where we would tap into some costs to try to improve technology that we use for folks who might join meetings remotely. Townwide mileage. 2 years ago, the town manager directed staff to use, he had 3 pool cars that were put put in practice from the garage. So the mechanic came up, and they're simple cars, little Ford cars to use, but rather than paying mileage, they had to sign them out, and staff are directed to use that if you want mileage. There are some exceptions for out-of-state travel for conferences that are only held out of state. That budget is $6,000. This would propose to drop that to $5,000 for the entire town staff. Finance computer support. As we move forward, we're trying to automate. Congress, their generosity, passed on a new financial reporting requirement nationwide for municipalities. So 2 years we will be using the consistent language. So I was attempting to start working towards that. This would just defer trying to implement that. Parks and Rec equipment at $15,000. This is for really the community center itself. Could be used if necessary at swimming pools and the like, but it's generally used to replace treadmills, bikes, tables, chairs, other things you would see at the community center each year. That number would go from 15,000 down, 15,000 to 10,000. And then the last one is public grounds equipment, bringing that from 35,000 to 30,000. You just heard Steve talk about what he needs and that number, but trying to go through again, none of these are recommended. They were all included in the town manager's budget submission. Personal opinion, this is mine. I'm sure can express his own afterwards. I think the town gains as much or more value of the cost. Folks use, for example, the library one is always the toughest one. We try very hard when we go through the budget and scrape things down to not touch public safety. That's police, fire, ambulance. There's no touching it because it's a contract, as well as the library. You don't touch typically the senior center, animal control, or social services because those budgets are so small. There's really not a lot to those budgets, but those are areas that really do bring value to community. The only other one I will point out, because I was asked about it coming in, there's nothing on here for the golf course because the golf course is from a budgetary standpoint, self-sustaining. So you essentially would ask the people who frequent the golf course, whether it be through season pass or greens fees, carts and others, pay that fee to then pay and then reduce the budget that was designed to cover their cost. That didn't seem very fair since it's covered by user fees. So that's why that's not on here as well. And none of these were recommended, and repeating it just so it goes on record. But you asked for 300,000.
But technically, I mean, the golf course, if you did have some things that weren't, I mean, you know, you take the list and priority wise, is everything on the golf course list at the same priority as all these or higher? Because if you did take some of those back, you still had the revenue stream, they could turn some money back over. You could use some of their revenue for other purposes, can't you?
You could. You would be
So not, pardon?
You would be charging users of the golf course then to supplement the town budget, but you could. It's a town facility. You could do that.
It's a town facility.
Look, the golf course ordinance says that they should set their fees to cover their costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, okay, didn't they have a couple years where they had surpluses?
Yes.
And what happened to the surpluses? Does it say
Fund
what?
balance. Goes in
Went to
our
fund
goes in
balance?
our fund balance.
I mean, some of it went to capital and,
Well, that's because we reappropriated.
okay, it goes into fund balance.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, we have a variety of requests for surplus. First, we're starting at the next council meeting, transferring money around to cover overages in other areas that were not planned. Then as we get out into May, June, and July, we ask for items to cover capital. We would go back to the capital list, for example, the items you took off. Those would be the items we would go back to and try to identify needs.
No, we'll take a look at this and discuss it.
Yeah, can we take some time to
Yeah.
pick it up on our
The
next meeting?
other question I have, Kevin, is on your financial report, on your risk and gains, you brought that up on the vacant positions you brought it up from 1.5 million to 2 million, right? Last month it was, I guess I'm,
High end.
huh?
The high end.
Yeah,
I always
but the high end, you're usually pretty good on the high end, you know, I mean, but my question is that the only thing that we translated so far is the police officers that don't need, you know, to be in it because that's been the experience. There's still another 1.5 million that you're saying is one-time improvements in 22 and 23 that are not going to happen in 23. And that's what you're telling me, 1.5 million. I still, you know, in my mind, I still don't see it all, but that's okay. I accept that you're saying it's not going to repeat or whatever, but
The
that's a big number.
The volatility is in the police department. Right now, there are 7 openings. Beginning of April, there will be an 8th opening. And so the reason that number has moved, and we talked about this, I think the December or the February meeting, that I said there's upside to where we are sitting. It all really depends on the hiring.
Yeah.
I want to say that the chief and his leadership team, maybe I'm overstating, but I'm going to say at least 3 out of 5 days they're interviewing people. They are trying everything they can to backfill those positions with qualified good candidates. Part of the reason I don't see it repeating, and this is what I'm hearing from the police department, is that they believe the police pension, once put in place, will put the town on par with many other communities. They believe there's an opportunity to open the door to some lateral hires. So that becomes a very different hiring practice where you can bring somebody in as a lateral. So lateral would be somebody who's already certified, who's already had experience, comes in, you don't have the training. So if what they're, I'm assuming going into next year that we would have the pension, that would materialize, and the savings from really an extraordinary number of vacancies, 8 relative to say a New Haven or a Hartford is eight's a small number relative to the department size. It's a substantial amount. I mean, even with the increase right now, you're talking 46 approved positions in here. You have 44 approved with the mid-year increase. I mean, you're talking like a 15% vacancy rate.
They had 79 overtime shifts last week, 8-hour overtime shifts.
I understand that.
One week.
Okay, I understand that. I think though, when you're talking the number of police, you're talking about $750,000 to $1 million. So there's still $2 million that you're saying is potential surplus. So I just don't see that. I don't understand the gap, you know, in my mind. That's all, you know what I mean? And it is what it is. I accept your response, but I just don't understand the gap. You know, you know, if you're saying that's not going to repeat, I mean, it has repeated in the last 2 years or more. The same thing. And it hasn't just been the police officers, it's everything, whatever it is. You know what I mean? You're telling me you got potential for $2 million in the current fiscal year of surplus in vacant positions. I just don't see it all being the police. Maybe half if you're stretching it. So I just want to make sure if I'm taxing the taxpayers that I'm not putting surplus in there, you know, that's unnecessary. That's all. And I'm just not, the gap is still in my mind, a big gap.
I mean,
Yeah.
are you looking to, looking for like a turnover figure that you can have as a credit negative against your budget, not funding all the positions, but you're saying assume you're going to automatically save so much money.
Well, I mean, I just don't understand the gap. That's all. You know, I don't know if it's a position or something else or what, you know, but just a big number.
I mean, the 2 big ones that I know of were from the planning office that you had opened for a couple of years. Other than that, there's a normal turnover. People leave, pay their vacation, we hire them. I don't remember right now, there's nothing that's sitting open.
I mean, at any given time.
All right.
you
So
have
you
some things, whether it's like
understand.
the department loses somebody and it takes a couple months, or sometimes it shifts. You also get retirements with replacement at a lower position, which results in savings. But a part of it is, I will tell you that the personnel budget is developed person by person. Every single position is identified in detail, including their health insurance, their life insurance, all of that. So positions that are in there, we are seeing that. Don't know what else.
Can I just make a point for next year? Not that you don't have enough already. But I noticed in going through the budget book, some departments tell us how many positions there are when they have a description of the salaries, and some don't. And it would be helpful for me if every department, I knew how many positions we were dealing with.
Now, in the town manager's budget submission, the thick submission, in the department lines, there is a box which will show you all of the full-time, doesn't include seasonal positions, but it will include every position by department.
I understand that, but we already have a slight binder to go through with detail, tons of detail. It'd be easier if it was all in one place. You know, like police says 46 or whatever here and there, but you know, it just would be helpful because I think if each department is doing their own write-up anyways, or do you do them all?
Oh, I don't do them.
Yeah, so I think it's a simple thing to ask them to put how many
Do a
positions.
significant injustice.
Yeah.
Every department. I tried to do the write-up for everyone.
I mean, some of it was confusing to me if you look at the VNA, I mean, they show 11 FTEs. They don't have 11 FTEs because they're mixing contract labor with FTEs and salaries, and it's all jumbled together. It should be really spiked out. They show nothing, hardly, not a lot in contract labor, but well, I'm in the write-up up there, they, you know, they list 11 employees. They don't have 11 employees, right?
Well, they won't. for next year.
No, we haven't sorted on that. Don't they have 7?
No.
Yeah, 10.
3 and 3 3 nurses,
Supervisor,
3, 1. No,
it's,
Let us show 10 in this book.
They had 11 coming into the year
okay,
because there was a director
Did we cover
and
everything else?
supervisor.
okay. So they do have 11 then. All right,
They
then
had 11. The one
They have
was
10 right now.
eliminated.
all right, I stand corrected then.
Well, you eliminated the director.
Thank you. All right, so we saved the best for last, the Board of Education. So I'd like to open up to the floor of our team to provide, you know, their opinions are.
Well, not being the shy one, I'll go first. You know, we had some discussions before in terms of where we thought we did an initial polling of the group the other day. You know, the Board of Ed came out with their budget, which was an increase of about 400,000 to the superintendent's budget. You know, as you've indicated, you know, we've dealt with the budgets, I think, very fairly over the last few years. We've never given them the requested amount. You know, maybe it made them work harder than, you know, than they should have to or whatever. Maybe, but I think each of the years, as shown by some of your charts, they've been able to make it through, and whether it's good budgeting, good management, or luck, or whatever, they've had monies left over. And you know, a lot of the impact of their budget has to do with how the choice program is funded and what our level of participation is. And you know, we've encouraged them to keep up the numbers so that we get the extra 4, or we get to the 4% level to get the higher funding. You know, when I proposed, you know, when we did our polling 2.8 to 3, I was trying to come to where I thought the middle ground was going to be. I sort of figured there were going to be some lower and some higher. So that was really why I came out with that. And you know, I'm sitting at 3%. That would be an increase of 1,472,000. You know, again, we don't get into what might have to be cut by them. That's, you know, once we give the Board of Ed their money, it's their money. And, you know, state statute has it that way, and it's always been that way. So we do have to be prudent in, you know, what we're deciding. I understand the contractual number is higher than the 3% that I'm suggesting, but the amount that we've given them in all of the recent years past has been less than the contractual requirement also. So, I mean, just to start it off, that's I'm at 3%, which is a cut to their budget of $1,393,945.
Nice. Anybody? Next?
Well, I'm not too far away from you. But the only thing that I keep coming back to is the fact that we've had a continually declining population. And it's gotten now over 450 students in 10 years. And we heard tonight about all the teachers that have been slashed over the years. And that's not true. Look at the number of teachers in 2013 was 270. And the number of teachers last year was 268. The only thing that has drastically increased is the number of people employed by the Board of Ed. That's up considerably. Paraprofessionals and other support staff is up significantly. So I think if they're able to continually every year after year work within the range we're giving them, I know this year is going to be a little tougher. I understand that. And come back with surpluses. We can't be that far off. We just can't be that far off on our numbers. I just hope this doesn't turn into one of these years where it turns into a needless fight.
No one likes to fight, Tim.
No.
So I asked for a 3.5. Do you mind?
You're in the same vicinity then?
I'm honestly, I'm at around 2.5. We were at 2.5 last year, and they still managed a $400,000 surplus. Plus, they had quite a bit of money left over in the choices program. So,
Yeah, but the 2.5 doesn't reflect the 6% inflation rate, like from year to year. So you already put them in the back pedal. At 3.5, it's still less than what they asked for 4.2, and it's based. My math was about, all right, well, it'd be about $475,000 less than what they actually need, but it's doable. They can work with it. But we can't. The math doesn't work. It just doesn't. I mean, 3, all right, I get it. They can make it work, but at 2.5, you're talking cuts. And granted, like the teachers and au pairs, and yeah, the times are different. Like the technology alone, you need tech people to handle everything. Cases, the IEPs, special education alone. Like, yeah, they have to hire other people besides teachers just to help out the kids. And that position is not going to change anytime soon. It's still going to continue for the next couple of years. Because honestly, the kids do need help every single day.
Okay. So you're saying what?
I would love to have a 3.5, but I can work with a 3.
Mark, any comment?
You guys know exactly 100% partial. I'm not a Board of Ed employee, but I might as well be because that's probably the football program. I hedge my bets and say I'll work between you guys to avoid the service. That's what I don't want. We went through one 10 years ago when everybody was yelling at us. We went through one in 2001, and I don't want to see this move. So I am hoping that
A circus where? Amongst us? A circus amongst us?
oh yeah.
But wait, not us. Okay. Okay.
Some of you.
I don't want to see the town.
Yep.
I don't
Okay.
want to see that. That's a problem.
George?
I have no clue. No, I'm just being honest. I don't know what to believe. What I see from the Board of Ed budget, it's not very transparent to me. I think, this graph says a lot that, I just remember years and years and years working at Northeast Utilities where till everybody got the religion, it was always asked for 10% more, and, they'll cut it back to 5 and you're happy and you go on your way until they started going, I want your 0% budget, your -1% budget, and your -2% budget, and you better give them to them or you better start looking for another job. I just see some of that in here, but I think I hear what Mark's saying. I don't want this to be an issue either. I could live with the 2.5 or somewhere in between, but I still have reservations about it. I'd really would have liked to seen this other side to see where we're going there, because I'd like to have this decision somewhat made, is it 2.5, 2.7, 3.0? I'd like to have that in the context of what it's going to do for the mill rate increase. So just pulling a number out of the air, not knowing how it's going to impact because we don't have the other side yet is difficult. I'm really concerned, Kevin, that the graph you gave us is just scary as all hell. You know, it's like showing,
Which one?
you guys didn't look at this today.
That's
You
not
sent-
the one.
That's not the one.
think-
Oh, the other one.
He sent a graph
You
out
sent a
today.
graph. I didn't bring it with me.
This is, this has a lot to do with my
Property
decision.
values? Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
you look at the number of houses that are gonna be paying significantly more in taxes if we do nothing. And we keep the mill rate flat, everybody's gonna be paying, some people are gonna be paying a little more, some people are gonna be paying a lot more. And that's why unfortunately, I would love to do everything, but this is not the year for it.
65%
We're not
of
doing
people.
everything though.
Oh,
We can't.
I know, that's why we're cutting.
If we do everything,
We can't do everything. Let's
we're
swing
running
on
out the
that.
back door to get our cars.
Just for our audience clarification or information, the revaluation increased 17.7% overall. But it increased more on the residential side as opposed to the commercial side, which means that a lot of taxpayers are getting revaluations above the 17.7%, say some getting 20%, 25%. So before we even touch the budget, those residents that are getting increases of 20% or more, that differential between the 17.7 and the 21 or 22, that's a 4% pure tax increase, property tax increase that those people that have been impacted by it. So we're going to increase the budget more for whatever we need to do. But it's a given that our taxpayers are going to automatically pay 4% more without any increases in budgets that we're applying right now. It's across the board, you know, pretty much. Oh, you'd be paying.
It would be
the
over
budget was-
13%.
The total budget that was being asked was a 10% increase. Oh, you're talking about just the Board of Education? Well, they're asking for 6% increase.
I just pulled, there's a couple outspoken people, very adamant about the Board of Education budget and the other one's on the VNA. And I pulled two people that I know that represent both those sides and I pulled their rate cards and I looked at what was going to happen with no increase in the budget whatsoever. Each of them were looking at either a $500 increase in their tax bill or a $600 increase in their tax bill. And their taxes were like $5,500 and $6,500. Then I calculated it looking at the full, if we just adopted this budget as proposed, that $500 went to $1,000 and the 600 went to $1,300. You know, that going from $6,500 to like over 8,000. That's like huge. It's all going up almost $100 a month for those people. And they weren't even in the category of the high end because there's like 35% of the people that were going to get greater than a 25% greater than 25% increase in their assessed value. You know, that adds 8% right there alone to, or 7.3% right there alone without any budget going up. Now you add another mill, which is another 3 or 4%. You know, they're looking at 11, 12, 13% increases.
Unfortunately, that's what every town in the state is going through. You know, it's,
Right.
you know,
These are
properties have
state
gone up.
mandated
and so
evaluations.
it's stuff that we don't have a control over. You know, I mean, that's the market value that they use to assess the revaluations. And so, you know, our focus is really what budget was presented to us. We know that there's an impact across all, you know, most of our citizens. And we take that in mind because a lot of people are struggling still, you know, and economic conditions aren't still great. But we need to focus that we can still provide a quality budget, whether it's Board of Education in town, even though we're dealing with the fact that, you know, revaluations are impacting people.
Well, we can, yeah, I mean, we've got some stuff where we're not going to go with that, you know, the budgets as proposed, so it'll come down some, but again, I'm just talking, some people are going to see, like I said, 8% increases with no increase in the budget.
A quick thing on the police department too, when we say we're pulling out 4 officers, we're not hiring 4 officers. We just don't have It's so hard to hire police officers right now. That we're down, I think 7, Kevin, right now. And we're actually down 7 of our regular staff, and plus we've staffed for 4 more. All we're doing is we're taking the money we would have put aside for their pay, because at the rate they're coming back online, it may not be 2 or 3 years before we fill those positions. That's how hard it is to find people right now. So there's no point in having the town tie up $500,000 worth of pay and benefits for people that aren't going to be there. Because then we just end up has to be rolled back at the end of the year anyways. So we're just trying to head up. We're trying to trim everything we can as close as we can this year to make up for this revaluation.
Okay, so I'm the only one that didn't speak up on Board of Education yet.
What's George's?
George,
I'm done.
okay, you saying 2.5?
2.5, but I'm still open, you know, but I'd really like to see the overall number.
Mark, why don't you put a number out there?
Okay. Again, ever since I've been on the Board of Finance, you know, I've seen anywhere between 4.5% to 6% proposed increases from the Board of Education. And clearly we've given them anywhere between 2% and 3%. And we haven't taken away any services. They're still providing the highest quality services. So I look at it from the perspective that they've done a pretty good job, you know, managing, you know, whatever budget that we're giving them. Maybe it's luck, maybe it's, you know, good management or whatever. So the level that they continue to propose, and actually I was a little astonished that the Board of Education actually increased the superintendent's request by 1%. I mean, because the superintendent asked for 4.8 and the Board of Education brought it up to 5.8. But anyways, putting that aside, I was in the 2.5% range, but you know, in order to make it work, I'm willing to work with the team and say, you know, maybe go in the middle between the 2.5 and 3 to make it work as a team. Now we got a lot of things that we need to follow up and look at. So what I suggest is, I don't think we're going to make any decisions tonight, so that we have some more discussions, you know, offline on things, and then and discuss whatever open items that we have tonight at the next meeting. I do suggest that maybe we buy a little more time than tomorrow night. Maybe we have a Monday meeting instead of a tomorrow night meeting, if possible.
Do you want to do that on Zoom or in person? I'm just asking, so if it's in person, I just want to make sure I get.
I like to put my arms around Jerry.
I'd rather have it in person.
Yeah,
I would too.
You said Monday,
Is that okay?
20th. Yeah, I'm good.
You want to start earlier, same time, 7?
I'll say
Earlier.
I love for
earlier would be good for me.
Earlier
too.
is good.
I'm doing
6
down
o'clock,
for
I
earlier.
have no problem
Yep.
with it.
Do a 5 o'clock.
Oh, hey, 6 o'clock. I got to work at 5.
Okay. Work?
Yes.
Okay. Or just to be clear.
I remember that.
cancel Tomorrow night's
Yes.
meeting, have a special meeting for Monday night. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. In the meantime, we'll follow up on some items and
We have a follower, I guess, as a follow-up of VNA cuts specifically. Is there something, I just want to make sure. to go out,
Can we get like a scale of them? 100, 200, 300, see how it affects?
scale of what?
Of the VNA.
Oh, the VNA, yeah.
So like a 100,
Give a
200
little range.
It looks like.
See what it looks like.
Sitting right here based on your cuts you've done tonight.
Are we meeting in our small room next?
If it's available, I don't know. The BAA has been meeting, so we may be.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Available. I don't know. There's sort of BAA planning and zoning, others. We'll find a room.
I kind of like it. It gives the audience a time to, no, I really do appreciate the audience, you know.
The mayor likes it too. So he comes back and-
I just can't see the board good.
Oh,
He'll be proposing cushions for the seats back there now.
Yeah.
Back there.
You want to,
So,
Okay, we're good, right? So,
wait, that 172 is based on what kind of budget?
If you can hang in these meetings on those seats, you're dedicated.
One thing we didn't talk about, I know you did various capital. One of the, well, this came off anyway, so this is based on the capital reductions that you guys had approved, so buckets 2, 3, and 4. This is 620 coming off for bond principal.
Yeah.
150 off the grant match, 548 for the police, the 10 years versus 5 years. And then adding in $500,000 of interest income and adding in 172,000 for the DB. So that's what's embedded, you've approved tonight, brings the increase down from 3219 when you started down to 30.88. Len and I will sync up to make sure we've got everything at this point, and then look at the changes.
But you have the Board of Ed in as their full budget at that point
Yes,
with
there's
no cuts.
I have a line in here for, I have reduced, it could be. I know the jet.
If we get close to that 29 mils, I'm on board.
Say again?
Telling you,
Get close to what?
29 mils.
We're at 29 mils just with no budget increase.
That's where we gotta be.
That's with the 0 budget increase.
Well, no, then we have to add,
They still have to vote on
we
that.
have to take the 29, yeah, basically.
You could, you're gonna give the.
No, 5.8.
1 point something million, are we? How's that gonna work?
If we give the Board of Ed.
Oh, so-
Supplement the kit,
Oh,
carry the difference. We got the 4.5 million surplus. I mean, we
You'd
have
still
to do
have-
something this year to keep this thing balanced.
But I think one across the range, you're talking approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50% reduction for that if you took what everybody said. So that would be for that was about 60% of the increase, and cut that increase rough numbers in half.
that's a $500,000. So that would drop at a $500,000 mark to one.
No.
Half mil increase.
Off the 1.7.
Yeah,
So what would be the new mill rate?
1.2.
Right.
Say it again?
No. I ran mine today and it's a $607 increase. If the mill rate was down to a 1.15 increase. That's ballpark,
$700, yeah.
because I used my 3% number in my calculation. So if he used the same one there, because I have all of those items already, mine would be overall a $600 increase, which is 8.8%.
And we will be supplying, we already have the chart. Once you settle on whatever mill rate you send to the hearing, we'll update the chart. It has every address, current grand list value for the property. So your current value, current mill rate, what you paid in taxes, the new assessment, and whatever is being put forward. But people will be able to go in and see on their address what the projected taxes would be with the calculation.
And George, to your calculations, my reval increase was 23.4. So I'm right in that very,
that's-
very popular,
Yeah, I'm at 22.
increase area.
I'm down.
Okay,
But you're not.
any other questions, comments? Okay, no. Yes, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Kevin, there's only 2 meetings scheduled Monday according to the event calendar.